Welcome to EssentialPhoto TV, where we take you behind the scenes as to how we create the shot. We're on location today, so let's get into it. The brief today is to create a high key setup for a YouTuber who is doing a product launch. Previous videos they produced for the channel are also high key, so we want to match what they've got before whilst honouring that with a new setup. The first step for me is to see what lights we have to play with in the space. So any windows, any overhead lights or practical lights that we can utilise. In this case, our windows have blinds, so we can pull those down and control the ambient. The ceiling lights give off a dreadful colour cast, as most fluorescents do. If I'm out on location, I prefer to flag them off than turn them off, as I want to see the space. But in this case, the white shelves behind me are what we actually want to use as our background, so we'll have our own lighting for those later. The brief is for a medium shot at 85mm f4, and then I'll show you what we put together. All of the lighting and grip equipment we use in this video can be found on the EssentialPhoto website, and all links to any products will be listed in the description of this video. So this is our frame. This is exactly what the talent is expecting to see. So we've got a desk setup, very simple lighting setup today, 4 lights being used, 1 reflector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all the lights and I'm going to show you exactly what we started with. And this is exactly where I started. I didn't quite start from here because all the blinds were open and this Leno 256 panel wasn't turned on. So I'm going to start with our key light. There we go. The key light we're using for this is the KNOWLED 300 bi. This is a 330 watt bi-color cob light, and we've got a 90 centimeter deep parabolic on here. The mount on the 300 bi feels really, really robust. It doesn't feel like there's too much play in there, which is really nice. So when I lock that handle back down again, I really know that's not going anywhere. And if I need to give it a little bit more I really like the fact that the handle rotates round out of the way. That's also a really nice thing when you pop it back in the bag. Actually, the handle might be in the way. Unlock it, put it back in the bag. Fantastic in that regard. I really love these locking power connectors on some of my older generation of lights. They've got 4-pin XLR. It never feels as robust as you kind of want it to, whereas these guys, you got to give them a good tug and they're locked in there anyway. Something I really like about the entire KNOWLED range, and it's really, really helpful for working on set, is that menu system between all of the KNOWLED range is pretty much identical. So if you've used the 300 bi, you can use the 600 bi. If you use the 600 bi, you can use the MG1200. If you can use the MG1200, you can use the 200 bi. The menu is exactly the same. But as well as being able to control them all via Bluetooth, via the Godox app, you can also control them from the RCA6 remote from Godox. Like today, we've been filming with a teleprompter setup, and our teleprompter is an iPad-based teleprompter setup. It is mirrored from my phone to the iPad. I'm only carrying one phone on me, so it's almost a bit of a pain to just jump in and out of apps the entire time, especially with the teleprompter app. So to be able to have a light that just turns on and off with the remote, oh, I love it. I really do. They have the Bowens S mount, which is pretty much standard across COB lights now, but it means that for me, I've heavily invested in Bowens equipment over my career. So what we've been using for this setup here is a 90 centimeter deep parabolic. I've got 2 layers of diffusion, the outer baffle and the inner baffle. I don't really like putting grids on in this stage or for this kind of setup, especially for sort of high key lighting, because 1, it doesn't really matter if it's going to start spilling onto the background too much. That's me, personal preference. 2, the grid takes away a lot of the output. And 3, it actually makes it a lot more of a contrastier look on the subject. And that's something I really don't like, especially in these high key setups. My previous cob light, I would only put one layer of diffusion on because it took too much of the power away. With the 300 by, in fact, we're only running at 19% power, so that means I've got loads more output to play with here, especially as considering our working aperture is f4 and we're ISO 800 at 1/50th of a second. So we've got plenty to play with here. I'm going to turn off the 300 by now, and I'm just going to show you what our TL30 Hairlight is doing. So if I just turn that on and off there, you can just see it's giving a little bit to my hair itself. And I don't like to cook it too much as a hair light. I just like to bring it up a little bit. And if you've got fairer hair, this is personal preference to me, I suppose. And I'll just turn the key light back on here so you can see what I'm doing here. But with fairer hair, I like to go a little bit warmer in color temperature. With darker hair, I like to go a little bit colder with color temperature, just to kind of bring out those other things. But just in terms of where our color temperatures are on this, my key light is at 5600 Kelvin, whereas my hair light is at 4400 Kelvin. So I'm now just going to show you what the background looks like, which is the 600 by color. The background is just as much a part of this setup as our subject is. And I'm going to turn on the background. Now, as you can see, that 600 is really punching. Even with the Leno 256, which is just kind of bringing that back up there, I'm just going to turn that off. You can see it's really adding quite a lot to that background. Maybe it's a little bit cooked on the highlights here, just there. Maybe it's a little bit cooked there. But what we've done in the final setup for this, because I'm filming this video after the off, as it were, we put a sign there which said Happy Halloween, and that was perfectly illuminated for that. My biggest gripe when lighting is that you have a whacking great powerful key light and you balance it for a window outside and think, great, wonderful, they're balanced. But the rest of the room is really dark. The rest of the room is just pretty much, as you see behind me right now, a bit of a black hole. So I didn't want that for the background. So I'm just going to turn on the 600 by. There we go. Now, again, this is not representative of how bright the background actually is. You'll see that from the frame that we were actually sat in earlier as to actually how much output there was on the background there. Again, another really great thing about these Godox KNOWLEDs is that they're all controllable via either the app or the remote. So I can toggle this on and off, and I can dial up the power, I can dial in the Kelvin temperature if I need to. I'm just going to set this back at 30%, otherwise I'll kick myself a little bit later on when we go back and start shooting. If I didn't have a remote or I didn't have the app to control it, I can control it all via DMX or I can control it all via CRMX. Now, I could have used a big scrim for this, but this really isn't the largest space in the world to be working in, and if I was to put up a big scrim, blast the 600 through it, I'd actually blocking a fire exit. That's a big no-no in production. So for this one, lantern just out of the way, and then if I do need to flag it off, which is kind of what I've done from the side over here, I do have a reflector to my right hand side, and that is just to fill in some of the contrast that we had going on. I don't really like negative fill when we're trying to do these very high key setups, and that is how we built this set. That's how we built this shot. Really simple in terms of lighting that we're actually doing. Very simple. I mean, it's basically a 3-point lighting setup at the end of the day, even though there are 4 lights and a reflector going on here. But essentially, this is quite a simple setup. Don't forget that all of the products featured in this video are available on the EssentialPhoto website. Thank you for tuning into EssentialPhoto TV. If you've got any questions about any of the products that we've used in the video here today, please pop them in the comments down below. We'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. And if you have been, thank you for watching.